I would like to welcome you to the January 2026 meeting of the Morrisville Planning and Zoning Board. If you will please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, everyone. If we can, there we go. Do any changes to the agenda?
No, Chairman, there are not.
I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. And tonight, Narky is an alternate, but she will not be a voting member. We have the full rest of the membership here tonight. Do anyone have any questions or changes from the minutes from last meeting? Okay, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Do we have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries unanimously. We don't have this listed on here, or is there anyone here that has a general comment that doesn't pertain to the item on the agenda tonight? Okay, see no one for that, and we can move, we have no presentations, so we can move to the public hearing. And thank you. The Assistant Town Attorney will go over the guidelines for everyone. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Just for those listening and who are present, and for the board, I just wanted to go over this quasi-judicial hearing because it's a little bit different than what you do on a normal basis. It's a little bit more formal. You all are sitting as judges and judge and jury on this matter. So it's an evidentiary hearing, which means you will see all of the witnesses sworn in. That goes for the applicant as well as staff. And you are going to be listening to testimony. Only certain people have a right to participate in the hearing. That would be town staff, the applicant, people who would be directly impacted by granting the variance, such as neighbors and that type of thing. Your debate has to occur during open session. You can't go into closed session to discuss this. And your decision has to be made on the evidence presented tonight. And when I say evidence, I mean the competent, material, and substantial evidence. If for some reason there is testimony that is offered that doesn't meet that standard, you can still hear it, but you cannot use it to make your decision. And we'll have to kind of make a differentiation if that occurs. You're going to be looking at 4 factors tonight, and town staff will be going over that. And the burden is on the applicant on these 4 factors, and you have to find that all 4 factors have been met to issue the variance. You're going to be looking at whether an unnecessary hardship would result, whether hardship results from conditions peculiar to the property, that the hardship didn't result from actions taken by the applicant, and whether the variance is otherwise consistent with the purpose of the UDO. Again, staff will go into more detail on those. Again, the decision has to be made on the competent evidence in the record. So if you have any information from outside, you cannot consider it. And in fact, if you do have information about this matter that you're bringing with you today, that should be disclosed, and it may or may not, depending on what it is, disqualify you from hearing this matter. Again, you're the impartial body that is listening to the applicant. You will not be adopting a resolution tonight. What you will be doing is voting after your discussion in favor of or against the variance. And after tonight, your resolution and your written decision will be issued. And then finally, the last thing I would remind you of is that your decision and approval has to be by 4/5 of the body, of the voting body. No offense to your alternate, but if you have any questions, please let me know. And as we go through tonight, if I need to chime in, I will do so.
Thank you. Just one clarification. So you said we're not voting tonight. We're going to clarify what we do and then vote later?
you will be voting tonight, but you will not be adopting your written
Okay.
decision
Okay. And that will be adopted probably at the following
at the
meeting.
following meeting, because the decision is going to be based on your discussion and your findings.
So if, let's say, some of us, because I will not be here next time, will that impact anything?
Well, we can work with that. It may be something that we can adopt on an interim basis. We'll deal with that.
I just didn't know if
Fact.
it would matter, or,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, if the deliberations were done one way and not the other, yeah.
Yeah, no, deliberations should be tonight, decisions should be reached tonight. It's just that the written version
Final
will not come
approval,
out.
okay. All right, thank you. Okay, we can go forward with the presentation.
And Chairman Langston, our town clerk was kind enough to hang around tonight. We are going to start by swearing in any staff or anyone from the applicant team that is going to speak tonight, or if you think you may speak tonight, I would suggest that you go ahead and proactively be sworn in. We're going to do it all at once here at the start. And thank you for sticking around to accommodate us. Appreciate it.
So if you are going to be sworn in, if you'll just stand and raise your right hand.
I mean, you're not going to have to speak if you get sworn in, it just, you should if you think you might.
Right. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Perfect.
Thank you.
And then there will be a sign-in sheet, and just make sure you sign.
Yes, I will ask before you leave tonight, you sign this in, sign in, that would be great, name, address.
All right. Good evening. Thank you, Chairman. As you can tell, I am not Brittany Johnson. Brittany is unfortunately out sick, so I'll be doing my best to fill in for her. I'm Elliot Ward, the other planning manager in the planning department. Tonight, we're discussing a variance request for 152 Grand Drive. This is a variance to the UDO, section 3.3.5 of the Town of Morrisville Unified Development Ordinance to increase the allowable maximum setback encroachment for an addition to 152 Grand Drive from 10 feet to 2 feet 3 inches. The parcel is specifically identified as Wake County PIN 0754-37-9094. The subject property, seen here in red, is 152 Grand Drive, same PIN, approximately 0.08 acres. The current density is high-density residential, HDR. It's a single-family attached townhome. The applicant who's here tonight is Richard Roberts. So the proposed request, the staff approved the applicant's plot plan back in January 12th of last year, which would allow the addition of a screened porch. So per the UDO table 11.4.2.d, allowable encroachments into required yards, a screened or unscreened porch on a single-family attached dwelling may extend to all the way to the rear lot line that abuts an open space. However, the definition of porch in the UDO reads that it's projection from the outside wall of a dwelling covered by a roof and or side walls, other than the side of the building to which the porch is attached, not more than 2 feet in height. The area in question tonight is the second part of the definition, which is a porch that projects beyond a setback or building restriction line may be screened, but may not be enclosed with glass, jalousies, canvas, plastic, or any solid material to a height exceeding 2 feet. So currently the applicant has screens in their porch. They're wanting to replace the screens with glass to use the porch year round, which is what this slide says. As you can see here, this is a rendering of the current porch. This is all screened here. And here's the image from this year of what it looks like. So this is all screens, which they would like to replace with glass to be able to use it in the winter as well. As far as the variance standards that our town attorney was referring to earlier, The applicant has to demonstrate through competent material and substantial evidence and any testimony that the application complies with the applicable standards of the UDO. Those standards are the regulation creates an unnecessary hardship that would result from the strict application of the regulation. It shall not be necessary to demonstrate that. In the absence of the variance, no reasonable use can be made of the property. It creates a hardship that results from the conditions that are peculiar to the property, such as location, size, or topography. The hardships resulting from personal circumstances, as well as hardships resulting from conditions that are common to the neighborhood or the general public, may not be the basis for granting a variance. A variance may be granted when necessary and appropriate to make a reasonable accommodation under the Federal Fair Housing Act for a person with a disability. Number 3, the hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant or the property owner. The act of purchasing property with knowledge that circumstances exist that may justify the granting of a variance should not be regarded as a self-created hardship. And finally, the requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the regulation, such that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved. So insufficient grounds for approving the variance. As Brittany has here, the following factors, they do not constitute sufficient grounds for approval. Request for a particular use that is expressly or by inference prohibited in the zoning district, hardships resulting from factors other than the application of requirements of this ordinance, the fact that land or structure may be utilized more profitably or be more marketable with a variance, or the citing of other non-conforming or conforming uses of land or structures in the same or other zoning districts. Staff recommendation is a little bit different than the legislative that you're typically used to seeing. So essentially, just upon receiving evidence and testimony demonstrating the findings of fact that are met, the staff then recommends approval of the requested variance. And then for your PCB action, obviously you have quasi-judicial proceedings, findings of fact. Your decision can be approved as submitted, can be approved with conditions added, as long as those conditions are related to the variance and or denial. And that is all I have for you. The applicant has also provided a PDF and would like to give a presentation as well.
Okay, thank you. I think we should probably let the applicant give their presentation.
And as you come up, if you could sign in, put your name, address, and signature before you speak.
Is he presenting from here, Michelle? Is he presenting from here at the podium? Okay, so it's set up for you, so if you want to go to the next slide, just hit the down arrow.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Good evening. I'm Rick Robbins, Richard Robbins, 152 Grand Drive in Morrisville. I appreciate you all being here tonight to hear what I have to say. We moved back to this region just over a year ago after living in Cary for 23 years. We moved to the coast, to the Wilmington area, and then back to the mountains where I'm from, and decided it was too cold up there and came back to this area. We bought a townhouse at 152 Grand Drive on the recommendations of our two neighbors there who own the unit right beside us there, Greg and Flo Eaton. We really like the area because of the open space and the relationship of the unit to the view that we had, and wanted to take advantage of the view out the back. It's one of the few places that has substantial distance between units and a nice looking area there. This is what it looked like from our backyard toward our neighbors when we moved in. Just a standard wood deck. And that's what it looked like from our neighbor's unit, looking at our unit. So that's 152 grand on the left end there. This was the original set of plans that was submitted, and it actually, when we gave it to the POA people, it had glass in it as the original material. But this is before we knew about the UDO ordinance about the setback. So we were actually proposing from the very beginning to make this into a four-season room. Our POA and our neighbors approved it. In fact, our builder got his permit for it before we found out later on that we were encroaching into the easement and that was going to be an issue. So we elected to go ahead and build the screen porch. And then when we built the porch last year, we thought, well, maybe it'll do for what we really want. My wife and I both have hearing impairments, and as this slide shows here, it's 170 feet from our porch to Northwest Cary Parkway on a hill where there's a lot of traffic and up and down. We're 270 feet from the railroad tracks, and we're directly in the flight path of the RDU airport. It does create a substantial amount of noise at times, and we'll be having people over and sitting and talking. You almost have to wait to carry on the conversation until the airplane passes, train goes away, or the light changes on Cary Parkway. So it does make a big difference to us. And this is how it looks today from our neighbor's yard, so that you can see it's probably, I think, an improvement from what it was. And this is what the porch looks like interior. We love the space. We think it's great, but we have limited use of it because this time of year it's really cold, and we'd like to be out there and be able to use the porch. Pollen season, and you get pollen all over the place and have to constantly go clean it out. So those may not be extreme hardships, but they certainly are difficult to overcome at times for us, especially the noise factor. So we've landscaped it and fixed it up, and I think have improved the area of the neighborhood quite a bit. Our neighbors seem to enjoy it quite much, and have had no issues with anything we've done there. And our feeling is that it's going to look exactly the same whether it has glass or screen in it, and I know that's not part of the ordinance, but in addressing the four factors in 2.5.17D, the hardships are the ability to be able to carry on a conversation, extended times for noise and the pollen and the seasonal nature of the porch are hardships that would be overcome if we could enclose it with glass and have it a little less soundproof, a little more soundproof. We did not cause the action of the hardship by anything we did. We just simply built the porch and found out when we tried to sit on it that it was noisier than what we'd hoped, and we can't use it a lot of the year when we'd really like to. But the parkway and the railroad track and the air traffic were already there, and so we had nothing to do with that aspect of it. We're not challenging the ordinance at all. In fact, I'm a landscape architect, licensed and registered in the state of North Carolina for many years, and a golf course architect. So I understand the reason for setbacks for housing. I've been master planning things for 52 years all around the world. And we really think that, the ordinance probably makes a good bit of sense, but I think there should be some exception given to situations like ours where you have a substantial amount of open space and we're not encroaching any further on anything, and it does not have any negative impact on anyone in the area whatsoever. And our neighbors all seem to be fine with the fact that if we put glass in it, they have no issue. I would like to have what has been presented so far. It's entitled Variance Justification Letter for 152 Grand Drive, Town of Morrisville, NC, as part of the record. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if anyone has anything there.
Okay, thank you. So I guess, does anyone have any questions right now before we deliberate that we would want to ask? Or do you want to talk first, and then maybe as things come up, we can?
I did have a question for the staff. Is that,
Well, I was thinking more just of the applicant while he's there, just if that's okay. And then we can then deliberate and talk to staff as well, and then circle back if we need to, I think. Yeah. So anybody have anything for the applicant now? Okay, not right now. So if you'd like to sit down, maybe just be on call in case.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
If you can just ensure that there's no one else that wants to speak on the applicant's
Yes,
behalf.
yeah. Anyone else want to speak on the applicant's behalf or on any way, one or the other about this? Okay, we see none. Mr. Ward, if you could put maybe the plot plan up there, I think that would be helpful for me, just to be able to see that as we're talking.
I think that was.
Oh,
That was an hour, yeah.
It's an hour presentation.
Okay, yeah, I think that's,
Is that helpful?
yeah, that's the one I looked at when I was, reviewing the material. Okay, so Sanjay, if you wanted to ask any.
just for our edification, could you explain what was the rationale behind, allowing screen porches, but not, glass porches or all-season porches in these cases?
I don't know if I can answer the rationale. It was written into the UDO before I started working here. I think, if I had to, based on conversations, because we've run into this, with other residents as well. As soon as you get into putting glass in versus the screen, it's a quick jump to an addition versus a screened-in porch. So, in the essence of the regulation, I think a home addition versus a porch is more extensive. It's a more extensive permit process, review process. So versus just having the porch, putting a roof over it and screening it, as soon as you put glass in, I think it was to negate, again, I'm only speaking based on what I'm guessing the purpose of the requirement was, but I think it was to negate and the possibility of allowing any kind of addition to encroach that far close to the property line, basically. So an addition could just be added onto the home, but the property line versus the spirit of a porch, which is a more relaxed setting, that you're just using as an outdoor space, I think. It's the best way I can answer that.
I mean, is it possible that this distinction was meant to be like, because this appears to be a deck with a porch on top. A lot of times an addition might have a more solid wall, it's going to have a foundation that's dug down. I mean, do you think maybe that had something to do with it, which this doesn't have, but.
Yeah, and then you start splitting hairs as far as trying to make a determination between, this is just a porch with glass versus an addition which needed, and then so you have to make more regulation down the line is what I'm guessing. This is a little unusual that they have a deck and they put the roof and the screen above the deck, which is not typically what we see. We usually see an existing slab and people screen that in with a roof, but yeah, I think you're right.
And then I guess I'm looking at these, I mean, almost all these decks, they go way past that 10-foot setback, I think. Going by, if this plan applies everywhere, correct? Like in this photo, this deck and the other decks are all up to almost the property line, it appears.
So the decks are allowed to encroach, and this is just an aerial taken
Yeah,
from
understand.
near map, so.
But even looking at their drawing, which I think
Right.
is accurate, yeah. Sorry, yeah, if you have anything else, Andrew.
No, I'm just trying to digest the explanation simply because to me, as soon as you have the roof and you have a, even to put the screens, you are putting in boundaries. That you are in some sense enclosing. Right? Yeah, the differences might be air conditioning and those kinds of things. But that's what I'm grappling with, right? It is, if we are going to allow roof and the structure to hold the screen, right, then the distinction between whether I put a screen versus say glass becomes minimal.
Yeah, and I think for the purposes of this hearing, I also think it's important to remember it's less so we're discussing the spirit of the regulation itself and more so did they meet the regulations to,
I was asking simply to understand, the criteria to apply and how, if I know the background, then you can apply it properly, right?
Right.
That's fine.
Just from a sequence timeline standpoint, it was originally presented with glass. Was that a year ago?
Yes, I believe this was, so it was stamped, I believe, in January of last year. So it would have been applied for prior to that, but that was just the plot plan. We recognized that they might need a variance based on what he wanted to do when he came and spoke to the staff. So we had some communication back in late January, early February of last year. So the rest of the process for them would be, they would still need to do final inspections. They would get a final survey from planning, which none of that's been completed yet. But yeah, it was late January, early February last year.
And at that time, it was turned down for having glass and they were required to
So it
put
was
screens in.
part of the review process. Our planning technician was in discussions with the applicant because of the glass and other things. And we informed the applicant that because you have glass, this is what the UDO says. It immediately takes it to a different use, essentially. So it's no longer allowed to encroach, which is where this kind of all started.
And that was a year ago.
Yeah, so when he came back with his plot plan, he removed the glass and said it would be screened instead, which is why I was allowed to move forward.
Okay, thank you.
When I saw the applicant's pictures, I love the. Turn the microphone. Oh, I'm not on. Probably didn't want to hear what I said.
Especially with Brooke not being here, we need to be extra careful.
Okay. When I was looking at the applicant's landscaping, I noticed it was beautiful and the way he had everything landscaped. But does that landscaping take him all the way to the end of his property line? And when I look at these chairs, the rockers that are out there, is that in the open space?
I'm sorry, can you
Yeah,
please
yeah,
come
sorry.
speak in the microphone?
Does that microphone work on the other podium? Okay.
We worked with our Property Owners Association and got written permission to actually bring our landscaping into the open space because we are landscaping it out of our own pocket for free, and the HOA did not have to pay anything for it. And they did grant us the ability to come 6 feet from the property line out, which is the line of those rocks that you see there in the area, extends 6 feet into that area. One other thing too, it was built under the original construction standards as a full addition room as far as construction specifications and standards. because that's the way it was originally submitted. And we built it to those standards and everything, so it's not just a screen porch deal. It was built as a regular room, other than the screen.
And it does have a crawl, I'm looking at the crawl space, is that what I'm looking at underneath the porch? That's-
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, there's a door on the right-hand side of that area that goes in under the porch and to the regular crawl space, so it's very accessible.
okay. Thank you.
Narky?
I don't have a question.
Thank you. So I mean, I guess we should have further discussion. I mean, if you thought of anything else, Chris, or? I saw you write something down, so I didn't know if you had come up with something else.
No, my only other thought was around the hardship factor and just the discussion around having the planes, but that was existing and the trains was existing.
Right.
Can I suggest that if you don't have any other questions, that you close the public
Okay,
hearing
yeah.
before you go into discussion?
Well, I just want to make sure we don't, so I mean, do you think we would have any more questions? We're just gonna, okay. So I will go ahead and close the public hearing on this item, so thank you to everybody. You know, you can stay here if you want, or you can you don't have to leave, you're not gonna need to come up with the podium, sorry. So I'm sorry, what was your opinion about, I mean,
Well, about the hardships, so as we need to go through and consider the hardships around, it seems to be consistent with the rest of the neighborhood, and when they moved in, having airplanes and noise and neighbors, and so I'm not sure that is actually a hardship. It's inconvenient and part of where you purchase property, so that would be my concern, although I'm sympathetic to having an enclosed room.
well, but it does say that the hard hit, on number 2, that it's things that are peculiar to that property. I don't know. I mean, the airplane and train noise is peculiar to this property and some of the surrounding property more so than another property. But it does go to that property. I mean,
As well as the entire neighborhood.
true. Anybody want to jump in?
Yeah, I think the hardship is the tricky part. I mean, it looks beautiful. It doesn't seem like it is going to bother anybody. But if we have to meet these criteria, that's the part I'm struggling with a little bit is how do we, I mean, is there a definition of hardship that we can, it's just like,
Ms. Jones, I was going to ask if you could kind of clarify exactly what we're supposed to be thinking about here.
Yeah, so there is not a specific definition of unnecessary hardship. Your guidance documents do talk about it should be something that is, unusual is not the right word, not an everyday occurrence. There should be something there more than an inconvenience. But you all, as a group, have the ability to decide whether or not the applicant's testimony and evidence that's been presented based on applicant circumstances is an unnecessary hardship. Again, keeping in mind the standards of 1 through 4. So I can't give you a specific definition.
But I guess going to the train noise and the airplane noise and whatever, that is a hardship on this property, right? Does it meet the peculiar to the property standard of this, or because it applies to 60 other condos?
Yeah, so I can't answer that question for you all. That's really what you all have to determine. I believe the factor you're talking about is number 2.
Correct. Like, will it be outside of what we're thinking about if we were to consider that as a part of it, or we're just totally within our rights to do that, or not?
Yeah, so, what the standard is the hardship results from conditions peculiar to the property. Hardships resulting from conditions that are common to the neighborhood or the general public may not be grounds for granting variance, but again, you have some discretion there.
Okay, so may not be doesn't mean may not be and that they can't be. It means we may or may not consider it. That's the definition of that.
The word may is used.
Well, I understand that, but
Yeah.
there's two different ways in
It
legalese
is.
that
I'm
that would be
walking a
used.
fine line here because I can't, you
Oh,
know.
but I'm looking for legal interpretation and guidance of this and to make sure that we don't, let's say we decide to approve this, would we be straying from what the standard is if we said, yes, we agree to this? Because that may not is not clear to me.
Yeah, and so I think that that gives you some leeway to discuss that term if you would like to.
Okay. And because on one hand, I do sort of agree with Sanjay in that, I mean, looking at it from anything more than 2 feet away, it doesn't make a difference whether it has glass, plastic, easy breeze or screens in there. It's still the same mass, it's still the same structure, right? All that's the same. But, again, does that meet the standards of what we're talking about here to make this change, which, that's sort of what I'm struggling with. If any decision we make here is only applicable to this particular property and case and does not set any precedent, correct?
Can you say that again?
So any decision we make here, I'm wanting to know, is it only applicable to this property and does not set any precedent for other similar properties?
Yeah, so it is a variance request specific to this property. It does not, from a legal standpoint, set precedent, but from a perception standpoint, it may.
I'd love to entertain more discussion. We have all night. Unless people are big football fans, but
You
we
know,
still have time.
when I look at this, when I look at the whole guidelines here, I think there should be some elasticity in whatever is happening with our ordinances because they're gonna have to be updated or looked at some point in time. And what do we base those changes on when we do that? And I think something like this will allow us to look at how we, I'm not gonna say bend or change, but how we just sort of stretch what we currently have to meet the needs of citizens. And that's my.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I mean, it's even more, if you look at Morrisville, right, the problems of air traffic, railways, or even road traffic is consistent across Morrisville, no matter which citizen, or it's not unique to their property. But at the same time, if somebody wants to do something about the hardship of noise, why would we want to prevent it? Right, essentially is my question.
I do think it's kind of unique though. Like I think about my neighborhood, we have the railroad tracks too. So if this was someone at the front of my neighborhood, right, like kind of like this property is, I would say, yes, that probably is a hardship that there should be a variance for because I know how loud it is at the front. My house is at the back and we barely hear it. So it's not all of Morrisville and it's not even all of the whole neighborhood. I do think it's particular to properties, the railroad specifically.
Yeah, I mean, where I live, my property is far away from the railway line, but every morning, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, when the train comes through and blows his horns, I can hear it because even though I'm not, a stepping stone away from the Morrisville Carpenter Road intersection, I'm a bit further along. Still, at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, you get awakened by the noise, right? Now, that is different. I'm just saying in general, the traffic noise and the aircraft, because most of Morrisville is in the aircraft park, right? So if any, I mean, even us, if we can't necessarily use our backyard without any enclosure, if we want to have a quieter conversation, especially when the planes are landing. When takeoffs, we don't get that issue. But when they are landing, we do, right? So to me, it is a hardship. People learn to live with that hardship if they don't want to enclose it. Now, where if I want to do something about that hardship and close it, I don't see a reason why we should prevent it.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And I do think the location of this particular property is right on the railroad track and right by the road. So it is peculiar in that sense that not any other house in Morrisville is necessarily in that.
And I would encourage you all to think about the specifics of that lot in your deliberations.
Yeah.
Chris?
I'd like to speak up. I have a different view. So this was a large townhouse that had a small area for to go outdoors. If you don't like the noise, then you go indoors. So now we're talking about, it was not approved to be a room extension. It is a room extension. There's furniture, there's TV, it's a room extension. If you're putting it in glass and you're enclosing it, you're inside. So when I'm looking at it, if they want a quiet room with a window, there's a large townhome that already has that. So they're doing a room addition. And that decision was made last year when they approached with that room addition on it. The glass is all covered, the screens are all covered right now. So for me, I look at that neighborhood and that might be nice for one room addition like that, but as policy, as other neighbors move in, they may want to make other types of room additions, screens, changes, and then that's when you start to lose the community feel and why there's standards. So I still look at it as indoor space or outdoor space. And if you want an outdoor space and a small deck just to grill something and go inside. So I think they're turning it into something that is not condo living with a small balcony. But that's just my opinion. So
No, that's a good argument. I mean, but I will say, right, on the other hand, so the most local sort of government in this case is the property owner association. And if they approve this, and they would be the ones that have to approve other ones, I mean, does that change anything?
the first, because I live in high density.
understand.
The first one always looks nice and their property's absolutely beautiful and the landscaping, but then what happens down the stream, then that's very hard to stop. So they still need to comply with our ordinances, and because they're a close knit, and your neighbors that are right there, but that could easily change with a
could.
different neighbor or somebody that has a bunch of toys out back and they completely change it into something different. So you don't always have the same neighbors and the same taste in exterior.
I agree, right? But it kind of goes back to my earlier point of the town approved enclosing that area by allowing them to build that extension. Right now, yes, it is screen porch, right? But you allowed them to put a roof and 4 walls, right? So as soon as you made that exception, you now, whether the neighbors now build similar porches, it's still going to be, different than what, because you have already allowed one person to do. Now, even if everybody puts in a screen porch as well, it's not going to make any difference.
But it's a porch when it has a screen. That's part of it. You hear birds, you hear people, you hear outdoor noise. If you're enclosing it in glass, it's a room.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm just talking about from a structural point of view, right? As you were saying that, it's a condo, townhome community that doesn't have, backyard, if it was not approved at all, and this was the first time we were looking at it, then I would have agreed that it would not be a case to approve. But now the extension, whether you call it screen porch or not, you have allowed the structure of the building to be extended.
We were only discussing should they put glass in it.
Correct.
And we all have our own, we
Yeah.
we all have our own opinion.
I mean, when I first read this, I was a little surprised that the ordinance didn't delineate the roof as what would be
Enclosed.
allowed. Because a deck is one thing, but like the fact that it's allowed to build a roof, I mean, I just was confused by the whole glass versus screen thing initially, because, I mean, if it's in a setback, it's in a setback, and setbacks are there for a reason. It's weird that the town ordinances allow for a structure with a roof that's so substantial to be built, and simply because you say there's a screen versus a piece of glass, or like say Easy Breeze plastic, bam, suddenly it's not allowed. I mean, I want to think that the ordinances are there, thinking about the whole and thoughtfully, but it almost seems like it's just something that somebody, I don't know, it just seems odd that the roof part is allowable to me. And there's no issue with that.
Attorney Jones, am I able to respond now that we closed the hearing or not?
I will reopen the hearing and we can hear from the,
Are you gonna reopen?
just the public hearing, just because the town manager,
I,
not the manager,
well, I guess the one comment I have, I don't know if this area has an HOA.
it does.
It does?
Yeah.
All right. If it has an HOA, then all of those neighbors would have had to approve.
Well, or someone on their behalf, yes.
And if all the neighbors have approved it and you got HOA guidelines, if anyone's coming in the future, they realize what's there. And if they want to do this, they're gonna have to go through the HOA. And so I don't think that will become a problem. I think he's worked very well with that HOA. And, you know, I look at some of the guidelines that I see in some of these, and they are deafening, and I watch them as they change, depending on the conditions and the number of people that are moving into these developments. I think this one is a standard. I don't think it's gonna grow. It's built out. And so what you have here, if anything, is going to be HOA working with the homeowner or homeowners to keep its present condition or to improve it. I guess I just get concerned when we have this, when we are this rigid with the standards and what we're requiring of homeowners. And like I said, we have got to have some elasticity because things change. Things change from the time I built my house to when I live today. And if I had to go through some of the things that I see residents going through, I would probably put a for sale sign out there and move. So I am extremely concerned about that, but I really think putting glass on a room is that different than putting a screen on it, except you're keeping out the pollen in the spring and early summer, and you're keeping out the rain and the snow and the cold in the wintertime. And I think we should, I just feel like those are some things that should be considered. Conditions under which people live and the health conditions that will result if we don't continue to do things like this. I mean, the pine trees really create a tremendous amount of pollen. I don't know if you all are, maybe all the trees are gone in some of these areas, but when that pollen hits, it is terrible, and it's every day for months on end. So I can see something like this.
So let's Narky, and then after that, I will reopen the hearing, I'll let the planning director give some input, and then.
I did just want to,
I
I'm
will say
sorry.
the flow of the conversation, having moved on as it has,
Yeah,
I'd suggest just go ahead with the discussion.
okay, so Narky, go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say, just remembering having a screened-in porch early in life and then closing it in, and how much I appreciate having the space all year round. So there's a lot of benefit that comes from having, it becomes a hardship not to have it now that I've already, lived the experience of having a screened-in porch and having it enclosed. So I guess just experiencing it makes me feel like there's so many things that I don't have to deal with now because it's enclosed. And I almost look at it as that's a hardship that I don't have to deal with anymore. So that's just my 2 cents.
I did want to clarify, based on the last comment, The applicant did receive HOA
Elliot,
approval.
I think we do need to open up the public hearing if
The intention is to open the hearing, so.
So did we not open it?
Yeah, it's reopened. Go ahead.
Yeah, just to clarify, the applicant did receive HOA approval prior to spending plans to the town. Just want to let you all know.
Did you have a planning director would you like to? I thought you had something that would help.
I'm good for now, but thank you.
Can I make one more comment?
We can make our comments. That's the point of it.
I just want to say, I sympathize with everyone's feeling of enclosed porches and open porches, and I think the correct vehicle is to work from the Planning and Zoning Board to amend the UDO and change the UDO versus individually saying this is a great case of, I really want to change it. It doesn't have to be done today. So is this a follow-up to say, we start to look at this standard? If the standard is changed, this happens. So, I don't see a reason that we start a precedent of having people come in to make changes to individual properties when we have a really detailed set of standards. And if they are antiquated, I would prefer we start to look at what our role is to look at the standards and make recommendations to those for anything that seems out of place. That's just.
I think in this case, though, if you think of most houses aren't going to have this condition, because this is something specific to this house. The fact that it is so close in the back. A lot of townhomes have much bigger property now. Like if you think about the typical townhome, most of them built now have, like 20 feet of property kind of in the back there. This is a sort of, these are older, not that old, but compared to townhome stock in the area. It is a little bit different, I think, what you see the typical house. I don't know that it's going to be a huge number of people this would affect. Let's say we did open it wide up. I don't know that it would be a lot of properties affected because it is a pretty and peculiar set of circumstances on this house. The fact that it has a large area behind it and yet a smaller property and a smaller setback that they can go under. I know like in my neighborhood, the setbacks are 3 feet most part because that's a specific thing in our neighborhood. If this was under those same rules, they would be, they could have made it a little bit smaller and they would have been fully within that setback, like the 10-foot setback doesn't apply in Savannah because of the way the rezoning was done. So our houses are sort of similar to this. So I can sort of sympathize with the fact that you're losing the use of a piece of property because of the way that this particular thing affects this home. But there's some very persuasive arguments on both sides.
Yeah, but, I would say, if you look at this case, yes, I agree with Chris that we need to perhaps re-examine this criteria with the UDO. But that process could take, if not months, if not years, months, right? And I don't think it is appropriate to, impose, I wouldn't say hardship, but if we can mitigate this particular case, which is kind of in a unique situation, by approving this particular variance, does not mitigate us from working on the UDO update. They don't have to be exclusive.
I totally agree with that. I was going to say something similar, that I don't disagree that maybe we should take a look at that and make some general recommendations and all those kind of things, but it's not something that's going to happen anytime soon. And I do think this is a specific case that is different from others, so.
Perhaps time for vote.
So are we going to need to write out something on this form tonight and read it out? Or is the idea that we sort of, if we generally approve or deny this, then this would be filled out and then this would be what would be filled out for the next meeting?
So the idea would be that you've had all the discussion that you want to have regarding satisfaction of those factors. And someone would move to, since it needs 4/5 approval, someone would move to approve the variance request, and you would vote tonight, but there, you're not filling
We
out.
don't need to write this down and read all this out. This will be the next meeting that we're going to. So, I mean, any more discussion, any more thoughts? Does anybody have any? Again, it's a very persuasive argument. I mean, it's, I mean, anybody need more time to think? So again, Darky, you're an alternate, so you're not voting this time.
And we're voting just this as a hardship, correct?
Well, I was going to add, well, we, you know, we could make a motion and then we could vote on that motion. But I mean, I say I'm leaning slightly towards approval. But, you know, we can certainly entertain a motion to either approve or deny, and then we can decide and discuss that more and then vote on it. Or we can just vote on it.
I think we can, I'm ready to make a motion and see how it goes.
So who would like to make a motion to either approve or deny?
Sorry, let me just, I think we reopened the public hearing.
Yes, you're
Close it.
correct. And we'll close I'm closing the public hearing. Thank you for the point of order. So do we have a motion to either approve or deny the request?
Yeah, I make a motion to approve the requested variance, and also recommend the staff to re-examine the standard in terms of what is defined as enclosed. I don't know if that the two can go together, but.
I'm going to ask you if you wouldn't mind withdrawing that motion, because what you said is all going to be part of this case.
Gotcha.
So if we want to approve this, we can certainly, we've talked enough about it. I think the staff gets that idea.
Yeah, I
So, we
withdraw.
need to have a clean motion either to approve or deny.
I withdraw what I stated and resubmit the motion to approve the requested variance for the said property.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, that's your second. Any discussion about the motion? Or, okay, all in favor? Aye. So you got that, all opposed? That's Chris. All right, thank you.
Thank you. And then we'll work with the town attorney to draft the formal resolutions and bring those back to you at your next meeting.
Can I now make the motion for the staff to re-examine the criteria about what is enclosed now that
I
that
don't know that we
particular
need to
topic
make
is
a
closed?
motion regarding, I think that's I mean, I think that's pretty clear that we,
Yeah, you've given direction to staff. I don't think a motion is necessary for that.
okay. Thank you, everyone. And I appreciate all the comments about this. Thank you. So we can breeze through to staff comments.
So, thank you, Chairman. Just to start by going over the planning newsletter, and again, we had a meeting cancellation in December, so this is your November to January newsletter. We did not receive any new administrative applications to review. However, Town Council did act on a couple items. There were 2 annexations that were approved by them since you last met. One was on Airport Boulevard. It's a site of the new Duke Energy substation that's being constructed. And the other was a piece of property on Watkins Road, close to Wake Tech. That is part of a site for a mixed-use development that's going in that location and is getting close to approval. In other news, the alternate transit study is still being discussed and considered by the town council. The study does suggest that in the short term, we continue to operate a microtransit system, but enhance that system going to smaller vehicles, minivans, adding additional nodes, but continue to monitor and look towards fixed route in the future. Town council had a number of questions about the report and the recommendations in the study, so they're going to continue to talk about that at the town council retreat coming up at the end of January, and we'll be bringing the study back to them then at the end of February. Council did also receive some information about the Airport Boulevard Extension Project. Again, that's the extension of Airport Boulevard that goes from Garden Square Lane to Church Street. And NCDOT is expecting to start construction on that in April. And then I can't remember if we've let you know since the last meeting, but Town Council did select the icon, and it is a butterfly. So staff is now working on the mold for that, and we'll be working with the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Advisory Committee as well as we solicit an RFP and proposals from artists to then decorate those icons and put them around town. So that's exciting and also just a little fun. I did also want to note, give you a heads up that on your next agenda, we are going to need to put a calendar modification. We have 3 conflicts in 2026 with PZB and Town Council meetings. So we are going to need to look at alternate dates for April, May, and September. You will be getting some emails from staff. Typically, we like to look at a first Thursday or a third Thursday as a potential, option if we do have to adjust the calendar, but look out for that. Our plan is to discuss with all of you, and then there'll be a calendar amendment on your next agenda. Apologies for that, but we do need to adjust. And that is all I have.
Thank you. So we can go to board comments. Sanjay?
No comments. Happy New Year to everybody.
No comments?
No comments. Thank you.
Esther?
No comments.
No comments.
And Happy New Year, and thank you for the presentation, and thank you everyone for the thoughtful discussion. If that's the case, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Do we have a second?
A second.
All in favor? Aye. The motion carries unanimously. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.